For a while, I've been wanting to cover the topic of PTFO and what that actually means, because every time I see this conversation come up, I feel like people conflate the words with the actual meaning, as I find that people take it very literally, which means that if somebody's not physically standing on an objective, then they don't feel like that person's helping at all. And I get why people say that, because at some point, somebody actually has to capture the objective. But I think the definition is far too narrow for Battlefield, because playing the objective is not just about whether your body is inside the capture zone or not, it's about whether your decisions are helping your team win the fight connected to those objectives. As we go along, feel free to leave a comment with your thoughts down below as to what you think it means to PTFO. From my perspective, playing the objective means making decisions that directly or even indirectly help your team control the fight in relation to the objectives. This can mean being on the point, sure, but it can also mean helping your team create conditions that are needed to take the point, hold the point, or even stopping the enemy team from getting to the point in the first place. This distinction matters because Battlefield's not built around a single way to contribute to the team and winning. One of the best things I find about Battlefield is just the sheer amount of ways that a player can impact winning. PTFOing can mean pushing directly onto the flag, but it can also mean holding roads that enemies are trying to use, smoking sight lines so that your teams can cross, reviving players who are already contesting. It sometimes can also mean destroying spawn beacons, putting pressure on vehicles, repairing friendly armor, spotting enemies, clearing rooftops, watching flanks that keep wiping out your team. These are all things that may happen outside of the objective boundary, but are still just as important to affecting the fight on the objective itself. This is the part that I think gets lost most of the time when these conversations happen. Objective value is not only created by the person standing on the objective, but also by anybody that is making the objective easier to take, hold, or harder for the enemy to even get to. And this goes back to what I was saying about the sheer amount of ways that are there for people to impact winning. You don't have to necessarily be the person who pushes onto the objective and kills 10 people. That matters, but you can also affect the outcome in other ways. This can be through smokes, grenades, reviving people, especially people who are already creating that kind of pressure. This can also include resupplying and healing teammates, healing up vehicles, making sure that the flanks are covered so that your team doesn't get backcapped. It can even come down to just holding on to a flag and defending it. None of these kind of things are glamorous in the long run, but it all can impact winning games at the end of the day, and that is what I think is Battlefield at its core. The game gives you multiple ways to create value, even if you're not the best mechanical player in the lobby. This also leads me into saying that being on the flag is not always enough either. A player can be standing directly on the objective, but if they're not watching angles, not clearing threats, not reviving, not using the utility of their class, and just not reacting to what is going on the objective and what is needed, then they're technically on the objective, but they aren't really controlling anything and not contributing much either. On the other side of this, a player can be off of the point and still be extremely valuable. If they're cutting off reinforcements, stopping flanks, clearing defenders before the push, or holding on to a power position in general, this allows the team to move up and play onto the objective. So the real difference here is whether your actions are connected to the objective, and I think that's the line here. If you're off of the point creating pressure that helps your team take or hold the objective, you are PTFOing. If you're off of the point chasing random kills that don't really affect the flag, then you're probably not. And the same applies to being on the point as well. Being inside of the capture zone is useful when your presence helps contest, capture, defend, or stabilize the objective entirely, but standing there blindly while enemies control every angle around you is not some higher form of teamwork, it's just feeding with better intentions. So my ultimate point here is that good objective play is situational to some extent. If your team needs bodies on the point, then that's what your job should be. If your team cannot reach the point, then help creating openings is there as well. If the enemy keeps flooding in from one side, cutting that route off is important. If teammates are dying during the push, reviving is important. If a vehicle is locking down an objective, then dealing with that vehicle. If a squad beacon is keeping the enemy alive behind you, then going and finding it and clearing it out. All of these are aspects of PTFOing. It's not just about asking whether or not we're standing on the objective, but asking What does this objective need of me right now, and am I helping with that? So oftentimes, battlefield matches are won by players creating pressure, space, and openings around objectives, not just players physically standing on the objectives themselves. So yes, playing the objective is important, but understanding what that actually means is also important, as creating value around the objective is not the same as just standing on it.